Hello and welcome to the Career Corner, where we answer your career cues. I'm your host, Lukas Kauffman, and today I am joined by some excellent guests today, joined by Minton, and Sena Namkung to talk about everything there is to know about internships. Matt and Sena, welcome to the show.
Hello. Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
And it's so fantastic to have you. Before we jump into this and I start asking you guys some specific questions, um, starting with Matt, and then we'll go to Senna. Tell us about yourself and the internships that you've had so far.
Yeah, so hi everyone, I'm Matt Minton. I'm a senior. I'm a writing for film and TV major. I'm actually based in LA right now doing the ICLA program. So I'll be graduating in just a few months. So finishing out my time here at Ithaca. I've had a few different internships. I am not a journalism major, but I have a lot of interest in entertainment reporting. So I had a few like local Ithaca reporting internships for my writing minor. So I worked with the Ithaca Voice and the Ithaca Times. Those were some of my first local internships. And most recently, I ended up interning with Warner Brothers Discovery. That was what brought me out to LA a few months earlier before my like fall ICLA program started. And I was interning with current programming at Warner Brothers TV specifically. So I'm sure we'll get more into that later on internships. But it was, a really great experience and, super happy to chat more about internships and sort of, because it can be very stressful and scary and isolating process, when you're applying for stuff. So super happy to chat through sort of my, how I got to where I am.
Incredible. And Senna.
Yeah, so I'm also a senior at Ithaca College. I'm a TVD, a major and a journalism minor. I had my first internship last summer. I'm originally from New York, but I flew to Burbank, coincidentally near where the housing is for ICLA. And for about a month, I interned for a production company named Center Drive Media, who produces a whole bunch of content that is for the Food Network, but also they do content for Netflix with like comedy specials and just a whole slew of stuff. So I went to Burbank last year for my first internship as a PA intern, and I absolutely loved it. Feel really grateful for that. And that led to me this summer having an internship with Warner Brothers Discovery and specifically Food Network. And it's just really exciting because anyone who knows me knows that I'm a huge foodie, and like the Food Network is really a network or like honestly a place of content that I grew up watching and just like really shaped who I am. So like felt like a pretty cool circle moment. Yeah.
Incredible. So obviously, both of you guys are very qualified to talk about this. You've had multiple internships. What are some effective ways that students can find internships? And we'll start with Senna.
I would say, first of all, it's very hidden. Like it's really like people think that you could just look up summer internships in like blank category and like think that's like the easiest route to go. Unfortunately, it's not. A great way that I have found internships is researching the company or the place you want to intern for. Go on LinkedIn and find people that work at the company and reach out to them directly. Also, cold calling and cold emailing is the best way to go. It is the scariest way to go, but it's also the best way to go because it shows people that you're actually interested and that you are going to go through the effort of contacting them for that. Yeah.
Incredible. And Matt, any tips on finding internships?
Yeah, I would completely agree. I think, starting honestly, like I started my search last year in September and I didn't have an opportunity to land up till April. So it was a very long process. It takes a lot of time. But I think, being intentional at first, like researching, seeing what companies you're interested in. As Senna mentioned, a lot of internships, they're kind of hidden. So like, setting like alerts for certain companies that you might be interested in for when they do post, because sometimes like LinkedIn is very helpful, but I don't always see like every single posting on LinkedIn. Sometimes it can be hard to find just there's just so much on LinkedIn, so much in your feed that sometimes you things may get lost or you may not necessarily know of every opportunity. I've also had some luck with Handshake. I feel like for me it's a little easier to like set like what sort of like your parameters for like what kind of opportunity you're looking for and like location. But yeah, as Sena said, I think looking at like different companies months in advance, I think reaching out to people, really utilizing the Ithaca, I'm sure we'll, talk about this more, but like really utilizing the Ithaca College alumni network is really crucial, because I feel like 9 times out of 10, when you just reach out to someone, even if you only have a few like mutual connections, if they're also from Ithaca, they're going to be much more likely to reach back out and kind of offer their tips and advice and possibly even like refer you for an opportunity. So definitely don't sleep on the fact that Ithaca has a really wide alumni network, and there's most likely someone who's working in the similar field that you're interested in.
Amazing. And kind of on the topic, you brought up the alumni network. How important is networking in the internship search process? And how can students kind of use networking to build their way towards getting an internship?
I feel like building really meaningful connections, I think one of the first things that can turn people off if you're reaching out to them is if it seems transactional. But I think just really getting to know the person on a human level is super important when you're reaching out, because ultimately you might be reaching out to somebody who has been 3 years out of graduation, but the industry is very chaotic, of course, as we know, with layoffs and just everything that's happening right now with the media landscape. So possibly down the line, that person might reach back out to you looking for an opportunity. It is a two-way street. So you never know like how you might be able to help someone in the future, and vice versa, how they might be able to help you in the future. And it's also just a really good way to, don't be afraid to reach out to alumni who are working, maybe not in a specific, who are working in entertainment, but maybe like, I don't know, in ad sales or marketing, maybe something you're not like, maybe that's something that's not your dream goal, but you never know like who they might know. And I think it's really good to also just get to know more, getting to understand all the different jobs that are out there, all the different, avenues that you can go down. A lot of, and ultimately like a lot of the opportunities I've gotten, like I didn't get Warner Brothers Discovery through an Ithaca connection, but I did, end up finding somebody through a networking program. So it is really important, knowing just how many people are applying for jobs, especially at bigger companies like Warner Brothers Discovery, any way that you can make yourself stand out. And if somebody is able to vouch for you or sort of knows you on a little bit of a more like personal or human level, that can really make the difference when there's thousands and thousands of people also, looking for internships.
Mhm. And kind of bouncing off Matt's point, and like I feel like another reason why networking is so important, especially when finding internships, is that places like Paramount, Warner Brothers, big media companies, when you do apply, they have referral links that you can get from people that work there that unfortunately at most times will most likely be the only way that your application is seen by recruiters. So networking with the people that work at the company you want to work at is really, really crucial because that could be your way in the door. And also, yeah, going back to what Matt said about how long of a process it is much longer than a lot of people would expect. And it could get really discouraging at times. Like I'm not gonna lie, I got really, really discouraged and thought that I wouldn't have an internship at all over the summer. But using your network and networking, not just to build your own connections, but also talking to them at like an incredibly human level and being transparent has been really useful for me. Just being like, hey, this is something I'm really worried about. I haven't been able to find internships. People aren't reaching back out to me. Like, and just talking to people in the industry that aren't able to get me a job, but have been in the industry and have gone through the motions of like getting gigs and things like that. Like that was really comforting. So not from like a professional standpoint, but from like a personal standpoint, that's what I really got a lot of networking out of. And also like when you have coffee chats with people, don't like of course ask them about their prior experience, but ask them, what do you like to do on a weekend when you're not working? Because that says a lot about someone. And just that question itself, like kind of lets them know, like, oh, I want to get to know you on more of a human level. I've also had many people tell me that when they're hiring, when they look at you, they're not looking to see if you're the most compatible person with the company, if you have the most skills. Like they're not necessarily looking for that. They're looking for someone that they could potentially have drinks with after work. So it's a lot about just marketing yourself as a human being, not just as a professional, but as a human being to really show that like I am someone that you want to work with, not just work for, but work with. Yeah.
Yeah, incredible. And Sena, you mentioned struggling to find an internship and being worried about it. I was in LA last semester with ICLA, been there, felt that struggle.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for students who are feeling kind of discouraged in their internship search?
I would say definitely just still keep reaching out to people, but also I say that very lightly because networking burnout is a very real thing. And at some
Mm.
point, an excess of it will be negative. On that point, I think it's really, really important. Someone once told me this, and I was like, oh, that's an aha moment. It's really important to network vertically, but it's also just as important to network horizontally. So people like your classmates, if you have an internship cohort, network with your internship cohort because you guys are in the same, like we're all in the same period of life where we're trying to get jobs, trying to make a name for ourselves, trying to put our foot in the door. So I feel like just kind of leaning on each other for moral support, hopefully without that competitive side, because that could ruin those kind of relationships. And unfortunately, those are very real, but just kind of leaning on each other and just like updating each other on like your journey is really nice. Like I've done that with my friends and like it's comforting to know that like especially in the job market now, not just for like jobs, but for internships is incredibly hard to find. So just knowing that we're kind of all on the same playing field was really comforting. Yeah.
And Matt, do you have any advice for students feeling kind of discouraged in their internship search?
Yeah, I would first just completely agree with what Senna said. That was something that I've kind of learned, I guess, over the summer at my internship. I think, especially once if you, I think it's very tempting to want to reach out to like the highest, the executives, the C-suite executives, the people who are running it all. But also, like Senna said, keeping in touch with your classmates and also, reaching out to people who are a year or two out of graduation, reaching out to people who are assistants, people who might be, in the mailroom at a talent agency, people who are, just a little level above you is really important because, you never know where those people are going to be in 5, 10, 15 years. And it is really important to have people in your network who you can just be very honest with, who you can kind of vent when things are hard. And as I mentioned earlier, you know, this internship process can feel really, really long. Some people have luck. Some people might start looking a month before and they might find something, or you might look 8 months before and it might take all 8 of those months to find something. So just understand that everybody's process is different. It's not a reflection of, your worth or your value. Ultimately there are so many variables that are like I guess, just out of your control with just the industry. Sometimes I've heard from people who are like, they just don't have the budget for an intern that specific semester, especially if you might be going out like I am in the fall. So there's just so many factors that are out of your control. So just keep that in mind. And I think like also a way to sort of just the more interviews that I did, the better I got at the process. Because I went through the cycle freshman, sophomore year, and I didn't really get a lot of interviews. So I just I wasn't getting a lot of feedback, and which is the hardest part. I think once I started getting more interviews, you just get better at it. Like my first interview, I feel like I stumbled so much through. I, was overthinking it so much, but I feel like the more you just go through the process and you just kind of learn the ropes as you go, I think it's a lot better. And I think it might be a little bit cheesy to say, but know that a rejection might just be a redirection. That might not be a company that you were really meant to be with. I do believe that you end up kind of where you're meant to be, even if it's not like your dream job or your dream role at that moment. It will, take you kind of where you're meant to be, even if you don't necessarily see that, in the moment.
So it's important to network. Don't get too discouraged. Take a break if you need to. We've talked about some of these other aspects of finding an internship, but I want to focus now on resumes and cover letters. How important is a tailored resume and cover letter when trying to find an internship?
Yeah, I would say it's really important. Also, like at Ithaca College for us, like for TBDM, Chrissy Guest has a resume workshop. Like I'm pretty sure it's like once a semester. Highly, highly recommend going to that or just any resume workshop in general, because like there's a lot of things that I didn't know that I could put in a resume that like I could. And also just having your resume be very concise. I know for different industries, people expect different things from resumes. Like as like Matt and I are in a creative industry, like some resumes we want to tailor to express more of our creative, like our creativity. Cover letters, like seem very daunting, but there's a lot of like templates and generators that could help you. I wouldn't recommend like copy and pasting like a generated cover letter. I would use that as like another template and tweak it a bit so it customizes to what you want and send that over. But definitely having your resume be concise and from the most recent to like your latest project, like having that order is really important. So it highlights different things that you've done in your growth.
Amazing. And Matt, do you have any tips for resumes or cover letters?
Yeah, I definitely agree. Making sure that your resume is as easy to read as possible, keeping the font consistent, and also making sure that your this is a very little thing, but when you're with your past experience, make sure it's in past tense and, making it as easy to read as possible. Some places might now have like what AI scanners that will look like out at it. Or if somebody does happen to look at your resume, they're not going to look at it for like too long. There's so many different applications to look through. So really making sure that, you have the order right, that you're just keeping it as simple as possible. And also anywhere you can use like numbers to show like, oh, when I was a social media manager here, our growth grew 20%. Any opportunity you can to use like specific how you contributed to the growth of an organization or something that you did had a positive impact that organization or club or whatever it may be is taking with them. I think, showing the impact of your work rather than just, oh, like I managed, I wrote captions, that's great. But anytime you can get more specific about like what the impact you left on that organization is really crucial. And for cover letters, I feel like I would try to spend a little bit more time. I would say like prioritize your resume over your cover letter. I know a lot of your cover letter is also very important. But I feel like places are most likely, if they're going to look at one, they're definitely going to look at your resume. I feel like for your cover letter, it helps if you have, like, for me, I have different templates for like for development internships. I have one sort of template, and then publicity, a different one, and then sort of just tailoring it from there for like the specific company that you're applying for. I feel like the cover letter is a good opportunity to kind of show a little bit more of why that company, like why maybe a personal tie to the company. I feel like a common mistake that I've seen with a lot of cover letters. I used to work at the writing center. That's also a good resource, I would say, is if you want someone to like look at your resume or cover letter, is the writing center on campus. But I feel like a lot of people tend to just kind of rehash their resume, and your cover letter is meant to sort of build upon different things that your resume may not cover. So make sure that you're not just rehashing the data that's on your resume, and making sure that you're injecting it with a little bit more of like your personality, I think can make it stand out.
Amazing. Thank you both for that advice on resumes and cover letters. We're approaching the close of our time here. So I really wanted to quickly kind of moving a little bit away from advice and just kind of talking more about you guys again. I would love if you could share your favorite internship and why it's your favorite, and maybe like a highlight, like a memory or experience that you had that really stands out to you that you want to share. And we can start with Sena.
I would easily say my internship over the summer. It really, I feel incredibly privileged and lucky that I was able to experience working for the Food Network, which, like I said, like is something that really formed like my hobbies and my passions. It was really cool to kind of work alongside the celebrity chefs that I idolized growing up and work on the shows that a lot of people know. Like, for example, I worked on a couple episodes giving notes for Chopped, which was really cool. Um,
Wow.
and worked on a couple guys' grocery games episodes, giving notes on those. And I also Guy Fieri, I worked with the producer, the network executive that produces all of Guy Fieri's shows. And Guy Fieri sent me a care package, which was really, really cool. Like, who knew that that could happen? So it was just I feel incredibly grateful and so, so, so lucky that I was able to experience it. And like, I feel like another great thing is like this internship was like provided inspiration for what I wanted to achieve after graduating. And like, even if your internship doesn't necessarily reflect that, like just know that like each job, each position that you have will be part of your story and will aid you in some way that you do not know about now. So yeah, and also like for people like in the creative industry, I feel like it's also incredibly important to recognize the privilege that you have to be able to make this your career. We're not in the business of saving lives, we're in the business of entertaining lives. And I feel like just recognizing that privilege and recognizing that like we are incredibly lucky to do this, like kind of propels you to be a better creative and just be a better professional in the industry.
Amazing. Thank you. And Matt, favorite internship experience, some highlight stories, whatever you want to share.
Yeah, I would also have to echo my summer internship with Warner Brothers Discovery. I found that, I had definitely, once I got the internship, I had so many just fears. I was like, oh my God, this is a giant company. I'm gonna mess something up. I'm gonna do something wrong. But I really found that my team, the current programming team with Warner Brothers Television, I found that they were just they got their work done, but they also really prioritized like having a work-life balance. And they were, much more, I guess, casual than I was expecting. They were very friendly, willing to help. I was able to have coffee with all of the execs and all the assistants. So I feel like it was a really good sort of just a reminder as to like why I'm doing this. Just sort of seeing the process, because current programming is it's sort of a lot of places have it combined with development, but they work more on shows that are like multiple seasons in. So they're not as worried about like getting projects off the ground, but more just keeping shows going. Like Abbott Elementary and Night Court were some of their big shows. So it's also a lot of like getting to sit in on just seeing how they talk about like notes, giving notes to the showrunners, and also just seeing all of like the internal communication. I feel like the biggest way that I learned was honestly just getting to be a fly on the wall, just listening to people talk, seeing how execs, just their lingo, how they talk about notes, all of that was super helpful. So it wasn't as much like one concrete fact I learned. It was more of just generally learning how a studio is run, how they approach giving notes. And I would say probably my favorite experience was getting to go to a table read for Abbott Elementary, which was super fun. And that was a very surreal moment because my internship last summer, I would always spend my lunch breaks watching Abbott Elementary. And now like I got to see season 4, kind of seeing the early stages of the episodes was really cool. And that was also sort of just a pinch me moment. And it's, just a moment of realizing that, there's a lot of fears and stress about going into this industry, but kind of knowing that that was sort of a moment where I sort of just realized that this is what I'm meant to do. I love doing this, and just kind of inspired me to want to keep going forward to have more experiences like that.
Amazing. And so thank you both so much for everything that you shared today. Before we close out, are there any like last like one sentence kind of like tagline piece of advice you have for students in regards to internships or even just, career advice at large, just sort of like, put it up on a poster kind of lines?
Mm,
It's a tough question. It's a little curveball.
I just feel like kind of like reiterating what I said before, like gratitude will get you very far. And expressing that gratitude will get you very far. I feel like it's done wonders for me even as a student, and I can't wait to see what it does after graduation. Yeah.
Incredible.
Just being a human being in the world, I think a lot of times people, especially if you're at like any career fairs or any opportunities where you're getting to speak with recruiters, and I've noticed this about myself too, like there's so much pressure to like be the perfect candidate that oftentimes people just forget to just be themselves and just have a normal conversation. I think that's what really stands out. And honestly, like once you do get to the interview stage when you are speaking, with recruiters or whoever might be interviewing you, a lot of times it's more of a vibe check, or they just want to know who you are as a person. Are you right for their team? Do you kind of banter well with us versus are you checking all of these boxes? So yes, show that you are qualified and that you are skilled, but also just show your personality and show that you are a human being just trying to figure things out, because I think it can be very easy to forget that when you're in the midst of all of just everything going on.
Yeah, incredible. Well, Matt and Sena, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Yeah.
And
Thanks for
folks at
having
home,
us.
you don't have to wait for our next episode for career guidance. You can visit drop-in hours every week from 11 to 2 in Muller Faculty Center 101. I'm Lukas Kauffman, and this has been Career Corner.